an answer to this particular question. What is red tagging? Let's be clear, red tagging is a very real thing with a long and bloody history.
Alright, let's put our thinking cap. Magiging critical tayo ngayon doon sa sinasabi nila na red tagging. Paano ito ginagamit ng gobyerno at paano ito ginagamit ng mga communist terrorist groups? This is Pinoy Extreme. Let's do this!
This is Pinoy Extreme.
The Philippines was the testing ground in some ways for McCarthyism. The House Committee on Un-Philippine Activities and then the Committee on Anti-Philippine Activities, because communism is not only un-American, it's un-Filipino, was a very real thing. And red tagging was a question of saying, well, this activist, this student leader, and so on and so forth, you don't know it, but they're secretly a communist. And to be a communist was a criminal offense. You could be imprisoned for years. To be a communist leader could see you subjected to the death penalty. And thus red tagging was a right-wing strategy of attempting to dismiss political opposition, employing the reactionary criminalization of the Communist Party as a means of dismissing them, imprisoning them, persecuting them, or simply threatening them enough that they were terrified into keeping silent. So red tagging is a very real thing.
So, nakita natin kung paano ginamit yung red tagging ng gobyerno to brand people na sumasalungat sa kanila para kamuhian ng tao. Well, bakit nga naman hindi kamumuhian ng tao ang mga red or mga makakaliwa? They are terrorizing yung mga probinsya. Nanununog sila ng heavy equipment, revolutionary tax, 'di ba? Pumapatay sila ng mga inosente just to get yung gusto nila or yung pinaglalaban nila. Kahit valid na yung sinasabi nung tao about doon sa problema sa gobyerno, they are just going to use red tagging para baliwalain yung hinaing nila. They are going to use red tagging para ipagsawalang bahala yung mga problema na tinuturo ng mga tao. But, there's a big but. Yung mga supporter or tunay na supporter ng communist terrorist groups nakita na pwede nilang gawing depensa yung red tagging para magmukhang inosente doon sa pagsuporta sa mga communist terrorists, which is the NPA or CPP, NPA, NDF.
But at the same time, the way in which CSUN has used it repeatedly is not in service to the defense of young people, activists, and workers, but to hide his own political culpability. The allegation of red tagging is used to hide what is a most transparent political reality, that the National Democratic Movement follows a common political line with the CPP. Now, I have explicitly stated, I do not know, nor do I care who is or is not a member of the Communist Party, and if I did know, I would not disclose it. But at the same time, it is the worst kept secret in Philippine political history.
O, di ba? Worst kept secret. Bakit? Kasi tinatago nila. Sa tingin nila, tinatago nila yung koneksyon nila doon sa CPP, NPA, NDF, pero hindi nila maiwasan na makita yung mga member nila na namamatay doon sa enkwentro with the actual NPAs. That's already a common sense. Namamatay yung mga member nyo. Tapos pag ni-red tag kayo, magagalit kayo. Pinangalanan kayo ni Season. Tapos pag ni-red tag kayo, magagalit kayo. Nagsusuporta kayo sa advocacy ni Season. Pag ni-red tag kayo, magagalit kayo. It does not make sense. And ito pa, dina-downplay ng karamihan ng supporter ng grupo na yan, yung epekto or yung dangers na nagpo-post or pinopost ng mga grupong yan sa Pilipinas. Now, look at how they explain the martial law back in the 1970s.
You justify this by citing the supposed communist threat from the Communist Party of the Philippines and the supposed rebellion associated with the Muslim independence movement.
So, why are you going to downplay the threat from the communist movement? Let's start to be critical about why do people want to downplay yung threats from the growing numbers of the CPP, NPA, NDF. Ano, dahil nasa Maynila kayo at hindi nyo na-experience yung mga taong nanghihingi ng revolutionary tax sa inyo? Yung mga taong namamaril lang ng pulis? Yung mga taong nanununog ng heavy equipments? Ng kumpanyang pinapasukan mo? Ng gobyernong gumagawa ng kalsada? Kaya para sa inyo, wala lang. Di naman totoo yan. Let's continue.
Newspapers like Daily Express covered this the following day as Sunday, September 24. Was this a reasonable reaction to the state of public safety in 1972?
Sabi sa 1935 Constitution of the Philippines, Article 7, Section 10, Paragraph 2, the President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of all armed forces of the Philippines, and whenever it becomes necessary, he may call out such armed forces to prevent, suppress lawless violence, invasion, insurrection, or rebellion. In case of invasion, insurrection, or rebellion, or imminent danger thereof, when the public safety requires it, he may suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, or place the Philippines or any part thereof in martial law. O ngayon tingnan natin, may lawless violence ba nung mga panahon na yon? Of course. Kung ano yung ginagawa ng NPA ngayon, ginagawa pa rin yan nung NPA noon. Same tactics. O tignan natin kung paano siya i-deal ng mamahalin nating mga senador noon.
Opposition leaders like Lorenzo Tañada, Jose W. Diokno, and Jovito Salonga expressed that Marcos was overstating these threats to justify consolidating his power and extending his time in office beyond the 2 presidential terms permitted by the 1935 Constitution.
O 'di ba? Iniba na nila yung issue. Ang issue noon, yung growing numbers. Yung rebellion ng CPP, NPA, NDF. Pero ngayon, pinagbintangan nila si Marcos na gusto lang ma-extend yung termino. Well, here's what I want you to do. Why can't it be both? Both can be true at the same time. Marcos wants to extend his term, and there is a rebellion and lawless violence from the part of CPP, NPA, NDF. Mag-iiba na yung pananaw nyo if both can be true at the same time.
Also, there were only 1,000 ill-equipped NPA guerrillas in 1970.
And yes, I agree with her on that. There might be 1,000 ill-equipped NPAs at that time. But here is what they are not including in their stories. Are you familiar with MV Karagatan? Yung incident ng MV Karagatan ay yung part na kung saan kukuha na ng mga armas at mga gamit yung 1,000 ill-equipped na NPA na sinabi ni Mighty Magulang. And that is why President Marcos decided it's already too much. I need to do something with this kind of rebellion. O baka eto na naman tayo sa mga mamaru eh. Sabihin nila, 1,000 lang naman, kahit naman magkaroon sila ng full equipped na gamit, anong gagawin ng mga 1,000? Lakas-lakas ng natin, ng armed forces natin, di ba? Tayo yung number 1 dati sa Southeast Asia. Okay, sige. Let's do our critical thinking again. Given, di ba, na mas mahina yung mga NPA. But it doesn't mean na hindi magiging grabe yung damage na matatamo ng Pilipinas. This is one of the best example, yung Marawi Siege. Yung Marawi Siege, ang estimated number na ng mga Maute ISIS na sumali doon sa gera na yon ay nasa 500. And imagine the destruction that the city have gotten. 500 well-equipped Maute yung kinailangan para mapulbos yung Marawi. And partida, buti na lang nagkaroon ng martial law para nakulong or na-contain yung incident doon lang sa Marawi. Imaginein mo na lang if ever yung 1,000 na NPA na yun nakarating ng Metro Manila. Can you imagine the damage that we've taken? So, kailan ka pa magde-declare ng martial law para doon? Para kontrolin yung ganong bagay? Na pag sobrang lala na? Martial law's objective in and itself is good. It's for the protection of the citizen. Lalo na pag may lawless violence, may rebellion, 'di ba? It's a sacrifice the public is willing to take para bumalik sa pagiging safe yung environment nila. Of course, martial law isn't forever. Bakit ka magma-martial law forever? Of course, it will be just implemented until such time na hindi na kailangan because the threat has been nullified. Ang isa sa pinakaayaw ng CPP, NPA, NDF when it comes to martial law is that sobrang restricted ng galaw ng mga tao na nahihirapan silang mag-move ng personnels nila, ng kagamitan nila at ng kung ano-ano pang kailangan nila. Kaya isa yan sa rason kung bakit galit na galit sila every time that a martial law is being implemented.
According to the Ateneo Martial Law Museum, martial law and the abuses it empowered spurred the growth of the radical communist movement from, quote, about 1,500 in 1976 to 35,000 in 1985.
Ano yung common doon sa dalawa, martial law and the drug war of Duterte, na parating binabato pabalik sa kanila para i-negate or innullify yung ginagawa nilang aksyon? Human rights.
How was martial law planned? According to Juan Ponce Enriquez's memoirs, in early December 1969, a month after Marcos began his second term as president, Enrile was instructed to, quote, study his powers under the commander-in-chief provisions of the Constitution, end quote. Marcos supposedly said he was, quote, foreseeing an escalation of violence and disorder in the country, end quote. Enrile created the martial law plan with the help of Efren Plana and Minerva Gonzaga Reyes, two UP College of Law magna cum laude graduates from 1954.
So, yung dalawang sinasabi niya, si Efren Plana at si Minerva Gonzaga Reyes ay both naging associate justice. Yung isa Court of Appeals, yung isa Supreme Court. So, kahit saan mong tignan, may basis, at least pinagbasihan, yung pagde-declare niya ng martial law. It was even consulted to by then mga naging associate justices ng Supreme Court and then ng Court of Appeals.
How can we talk to younger people about martial law? We have to promote learning outside the classroom as the topic is not well covered in the existing curriculum.
I agree. Kulang-kulang yung pagkakaturo nung panahon ni Marcos hanggang sa mag-end sa people power. Dahil as I really thought, Marcos was plain evil, lalo na doon sa kwento ng mga textbook. Yung dineclare niya lang yung martial law dahil sa trip niya, kasi gusto niyang tumagal sa pwesto. Well, as I grow older and knew more about history, hindi lang pala siya basta-basta martial law. May mga bagay na nangyari nung dekada 70 na nagtulak kay Marcos para mag-declare ng martial law. Ngayon, of course, hindi perfecto yung pagkaka-execute ng martial law as what you've told. Yes, there are abuses. And katulad nga nung sinabi ko kanina, katulad ng drug war ni Duterte, hindi makontrol yung individual na action ng isang police, sundalo, or kung sino man yung gumawa ng injustice na yon. And if ever injustice was made, the best place to settle it is always the court. Hindi sa kalsada, hindi sa EDSA, lalong-lalo na hindi sa bundok para humawak ng armas. 2024 na, we could be civilized person. We could be civilized in discussing our differences. Hindi na uubra yung hahawak ka ng armas at kakalaban ka sa gobyerno just because you want something out from them. Kaya tayo nag-aaral ng critical thinking dito para hindi tayo mauto ng mga taong gustong maghari-harian, gustong pumalit lang sa kung ano na yung nakasanayan. Pero same pa rin ng magiging labas. Kaya tayo nag-aaral ng critical thinking is para magamit natin dito sa pang-araw-araw na kung saan parati nating piliin yung kabutihan. Hindi lang para sa sarili natin, kundi para sa ibang tao. This is Pinoy Extreme. Have a good day.